This weekend I led a retreat that I've been doing for since 2007, since I first became a nun, and it's called Moving into Silence. So we spend the first evening, people can talk, and then the Saturday and the Sunday until after lunch, we're silent, or the people in the group are. So, the typical question people will ask is, why are you torturing people like that? And we've I do it with a yoga teacher, so we do yoga and meditation, kind of back and forth, and probably have 2 talks. And over the years, there are a lot of people who come whenever we offer it. And what we find, now this has been, a lot of years, so 11 years, and more and more people say, when we come and we ask what their intention for the weekend is, usually people say to rest, because they're very tired. People are so tired. And that hasn't gotten less. People aren't saying that less, they're saying it more. Whether they're brand new or whether they've come a lot. So clearly they see a weekend where they don't have to talk or engage. And we even remind them that they don't have to smile at people in the hallways and with other retreats, and they don't have to even do eye contact with other people. And if they like, they can wear a badge that says they're doing a silent retreat so people don't think they're rude. There are other groups, and sometimes they're silent too. But we've done it for such a long time that sometimes I think we forget that some people aren't quite sure why they're going to a silent retreat. And so one of the comments someone made this time, because we always ask them to do evaluation forms, and someone said, maybe you should explain why silence is valuable, like what the purpose of that is. And we were laughing about it because, we used to spend a lot of time talking about why silence, and now we tend more to just everybody's anxious to start being silent. So I wanted to talk about that, just to ask this group, what would be appealing, or why would you want to be silent for a weekend? Or go ahead.
To recharge my energy.
Right, to recharge. And that's I think when people talk about they want to refresh or they're tired, they see it as a recharging too. I think that's a good way to put it. Mm-hmm.
I think in silence we finally find an absence, at least from external distraction, and we get to really look inward and see just how monkey-minded and distracted we are in the absence of external distraction. And it's only after getting very acquainted with that you begin to do anything about it. And it's very hard to work on those things when the external world is chirping around you and trying to get your attention.
Yeah. And our speech is a way that it's how we engage, like with all those people we pass. And even if we're not speaking to them, our face is moving, or we're smiling, or we're being attentive. There's a lot of other things. That's good, thank you. What else?
I think to take from what he was saying, it would help you pause from distractions, just pause.
Yeah, that pause is really important. And I think that's why people say that they feel so, like they're so tired when they come, because you aren't usually poising. And most of the people who come are people who are busy in their regular life. They're not when we started, people had younger children. Now we've done it long enough that most of the people with the young kids, their kids are older, so, but they're still just as tired. What else?
I woke up with anxiety if I went silent, unless it was if I was meditating and going inward, sort of.
Uh-huh.
I think that's really good, but I think like right now, like a half hour, I think is good. Or it means that being silent and you're doing this thing like meditation, I get energy for talking, especially with the silence.
Especially with the silence? What?
With the silent, because he talks a lot. And I talk a lot also. I think it would be anxiety with talking.
You think it would? There, a lot of people feel that way. They're very anxious, especially before they ever come to a silent retreat. They are very anxious about it because,
I bring out a communicator at Parker, so the thought of that makes me.
just thinking about it makes you anxious. That's very common. Mm-hmm.
The opposite of the idea of being silent makes me really happy because I always fumble when trying to figure out how to communicate with people because of all the anxiety and stuff. So,
Yeah. The silence is a relief from that, right? Mm-hmm.
I think that one advantage would be that after, as you say, you spend a full day or maybe more not speaking, maybe notice the times when you would have said something that you might have regretted or something that you didn't truly stand behind.
Mm-hmm.
So at the end of being silent for a long period of time, you might be more aware of the things that are really truly important to you, as opposed to the things that you just kind of say just for the sake of saying.
Yeah. It's a wonderful way to really learn about speech, right speech. Because you can see right away, because you're passing people in the hallways and other groups, and you can imagine how much you'd be talking, just little chatting with people. I know I see that. And the other thing about speech, I mean, there's a lot about the working with our speech, but also how much of the time we're not listening because we're speaking or thinking about speaking or thinking about who we might want to speak to in the group or who we want to not speak to. So, yeah, I think what I think all of us notice, if there are usually 3 groups on retreat where we have our retreats, and maybe one other is a silent group too, and another, or they might both be groups that are talking, and we can really notice how much chatter there is. So they even have a separate dining room for the silent retreatants. And before we would often have to be in the same dining room. And it's amazing how loud it feels and how, you either want to join in or you want to run out of the room. But there are lots of good practices that just seeing what other people are speaking about. What else sounds appealing or not appealing to anybody? It's interesting how many books there are on silence. And just the yoga teacher that I do this with, her personal library, she usually brings about 10 or 11 books the title is Silence. And it's pretty amazing. There's a lot written about silence. I don't know how much of it is the same. But I think in all spiritual traditions, there's a big value placed on silence. And, Steve?
I know it's like when I read a book, I have to have absolute quiet or else I get distracted. So when I meditate, when I'm in this silence, I can be myself. But if I'm being affected by sounds and distractions, I'm not myself. My thoughts just silence, I realize who I am. It's being quiet and still.
Yeah, I think that's true too. We see ourselves. The reflection of ourselves is better. I mean, sometimes we're sort of screaming at first because that silence feels awkward or uncomfortable. But if we can settle into it, we see ourselves. We see ourselves when we might be speaking otherwise, and we notice, wow, I probably would have jumped right into that conversation and added my 2 cents worth, and then then later thought, why, it didn't even interest me. Why did I get caught up in it? Yeah. And, I've talked to people recently who, a couple of people who are retired, but it's kind of new to be retired, and they're uncomfortable with silence at home. Some of them absolutely are loving it, but there are some people who are still, maybe to keep the TV on during the day just as a background ambiance, and years ago, that's what was comfortable for me. But I realize now I don't have that. I'm very comfortable without, other than the dog, which will bark once in a while. But he's getting old, so he's even quiet. I sometimes can hear my neighbors, but it's really a choice if I have anything. And I don't listen to music as much as I used to. I get easily distracted. That's one thing I know about myself. So there's no allure. I have no, Facebook is just something I don't even like to be around because that's a big distraction to me. So I'm like the kid chasing butterflies on the soccer field. There are a lot of butterflies on Facebook.
One of my favorite phrases actually references silence, and it's look for the flower of bloom in the silence that follows the storm. And there's it's really deep meaning, and it's one of the things that I think is a cool thing. Like, when you have a storm in your life, and you have the silence after the storm. It's just, that's part of this silence to me, because to me it's a really deep meaning, and it's a really deep thing. That's what, to me, where silence is a pretty deep thing.
Yeah, I think when we can enter that silence, it is very refreshing and very peaceful and calm. I mean, there are other times, especially if we're not used to it, and we're really used to kind of seeing the world or feeling the world with our verbal abilities. We feel disarmed without those words. But it's good to do that, because then I think we find out other qualities. The teacher, my yoga partner, we feel like it's very noisy because so we decided Sunday. She said, "You know what? Maybe we should go to a retreat. Just go to a retreat and let somebody else be doing all the noise-making stuff." And we were both like, that's a great idea, isn't it? Hadn't thought about that. Because she has to talk all through the yoga classes, which just seems like a lot of talking to me, but it helps people who are doing yoga. And while she's doing one class, I go and talk to the person in the office, because I'm taking care of things going on and paying the bills and that kind of stuff. And then we have to talk to each other if something's off schedule or we have to track in with each other. So for us, it's too much talking. But it's still wonderful to be in that situation where when we're walking around in the hallways or when we're eating, one of the things that was the hardest for people when we first started doing it was being silent during the meals. So if you haven't done that, it's really weird at first. Do you think it's weird at first, Todd, or are you comfortable?
The whole time.
Yeah.
Try not to think about it.
That's the best secret. We forgot to mention that to new people, that you don't have to make eye contact with people. And that's because I spent years thinking, well, I'm not talking, but if I smile at everybody and, make that face, and then they don't think I'm rude. But when you let go of even that, it's wonderful, where you're not thinking what their reaction is to the look on your face. Like if you're being pensive, or you're trying to focus a little downward, like using walking somewhere as a practice, as walking meditation, there doesn't have to be the slightest thought like, oh, they probably think I'm rude. I mean, think how much we do that. I was very much aware of that. So how wonderful it was not to have to speak with non-verbally, just so it doesn't offend anybody.
This might not be all that related, but it's related to silence. At my school, there's a room that they call an anechoic chamber, where they line the sides with like foam padding, and there's like wires that you stand on, so like when you make a noise, it like doesn't come back to you. It's really kind of alarming, but to be in there is like super peaceful, but also kind of like uncomfortable. Because like really you're the only one making noise that you can hear, so you can hear like your heart beating. It's kind of weird, but it's interesting.
And it's not in water, you're in a room. But is it like the chambers where you get in the water and...
I would think so. I don't know how much water moves, or like the sound moves around in one of those chambers like that. But like it's crazy. It's like no sound comes back to you from the walls. What goes going on, but like when it's in there, it's designed so that like sounds don't bounce around as much back to you.
Can you get it? What do people use it for?
I think they use it to like test microphones, but
Oh.
I don't know if they use it too much anymore.
They don't.
And I would meditate once or twice.
I was going to say, could you go in to do that?
Yeah, you kind of have to like know the right people. Key and stuff.
Was it a good place to meditate?
Yeah, it was a little uncomfortable to like sit in there because there isn't like really a chair or anything. But apart from that, it was like super calm, so it was easy to get into like a quiet meditation.
Oh, that's really cool. I would think that could be really popular for people to experience that. And you don't have to get in water. Yeah.
We have one of those somewhere, I can't remember, it's like the world's quietest room, basically. And I think the longest that someone's maybe should stay in that one was only like 7 or 8 minutes.
Really?
Yeah, because you can hear like your heartbeat and you hear the blood running through your veins, and ways that your muscles move, so it's really kind of creepy.
You're like your stomach moving around and stuff.
Isn't that fascinating? So if that's how alien it is to us to be able to be listening to ourselves, isn't it? So imagine just being able to be not talking, how much more you're watching your thoughts. And so it is a lot to ask people to be quiet for a weekend, 6 or 7 minutes. That's amazing.
So I'm very curious. I've never done a full day retreat. Even my meditations have been restricted to, I think maybe one time it was 5 hours, but that was one time. That was a while ago. Since then, it's been 30-minute durations usually, similar to what happens here. I was wondering if after a certain point in time, if the internal chatter that your mind just seems to generate begins to find silence as well, and you're left with more of a sort of like raw, reality, I guess.
I think that would depend on the person. I know I've done the 10-day Vipassana one time, and my internal self just was cranking out lots of stuff. It was a real fight. But I think it would depends on the person. I think it's really because, what about you, Todd? Do you feel like your internal chatter?
Yeah, mine never stops. You know, the superficial things you think about every day is sort of like after a while. And the really deep things, I think, feeling you're talking before, really deep things start coming up that you ignore or suppressing.
That's, yeah. And that's the really wonderful thing, because that monkey mind's seems to keep working, but sometimes there can just be things coming up that we have managed to keep down, but by being quiet, we've let go of one of our safeguards to keep that stuff pushed down, and it will rise up, and it can do that when you're being silent for 30 minutes too. Because if you keep doing it and it becomes a regular practice, you're able to more quickly let that guard down. But the longer our meditate, and this weekend we do, I think the longest, people can do it on their own, of course, but the longest our meditation would be say 45 minutes, and then we do something else or have a break or have yoga or walking meditation for a longer period, but people are kind of on their own. So I think that can begin to happen, the longer periods, because if you're relaxed, you're just kind of letting everything go, so you can start seeing some old stuff maybe come up, or stuff that is like, oh, I didn't know I was still holding on to that, or oh, I don't think I've thought about that in a long time, but it might be something that comes up. But that silence is about the only way we can access that.
One of the things that was really strange for me is when I got laid off, and it was about maybe 11 years ago, and I had a really good severance package, so I came for a job for 8 months. But it was so strange how little stress I had in my life, that I would see somebody that I hadn't seen in 3 months, and I'm like, oh my God, you look like a different person, because I had no thought about work. I was looking for a job, I wasn't thinking about a job, and I was playing tennis with my daughter, and she didn't have tennis, started playing golf, and the only thing I thought about was fun things. And I woke up every day about 7 o'clock to make sure I could sleep till 11. But it's so strange how the mind is so different, and people can tell physically the change in myself. And I just saw a guy at Mariano's about 2 weeks ago. He retired maybe, I thought it was 8 months ago. He looked like a total different person. He had color in his face. He looked so relaxed. And he said it's just such a complete different thing. So if you have even if it's a job that doesn't seem stressful, and then you quit or you get laid off, and you're off for months, or for me it was almost a year.
Mm-hmm.
And it's incredible. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, that's that refreshing that people need. Yeah.
Yeah, there's zero stress, and you don't have to think about anything. It's a really bizarre feeling.
Yeah, people's faces change. And a lot of people, even from a weekend of being quiet, will say that something that they've been kind of mulling over becomes more clear. What decision they should make, or they feel that they were able to let it go. I think that's the nicest thing, is you just can let go of all your current baggage. Just, okay, don't have to think about that. Like, I'm here, I'm not supposed to think about anything, and it's easy to let it go. Yeah. That's the Buddha talked about meditation, especially practicing loving kindness. You become beautiful, and it's because you're letting go of those worry lines. You're letting go of that stuff that we're always worried about or feel anxious about, or all that stuff that we think depends on us to juggle those balls, or the whole universe, is going to fall apart. And so you take on a countenance that is beautiful. And I think that's really true. Well, thank you, everybody. I really like your thoughts.